On February 19, 1947, at 6:10 a.m., with his fuel tanks and his Douglas R-4D 5L aircraft cleared for takeoff, Rear Admiral Richard Byrd left the Antarctic base called Little America 4 and set out on a reconnaissance flight flying northward. The purpose of this flight was to gather crucial hydrographic, geographic, and geological data, mapping vast new regions for scientific research and to investigate the potential for establishing and maintaining future Antarctic bases for the United States.
Rear Admiral Byrd was the officer in charge of the U.S. Operation High Jump. As his flight progressed, at 7:40 a.m., Admiral Byrd noted an oil leak in his starboard engine and encountered turbulence. He adjusted for the turbulence by adjusting his altitude, climbing from 2,321 feet to 2,900 feet. Upon climbing higher, Admiral Byrd began to notice the colors in the ice and snow below were different. He reported the ice began to take on a red and purplish appearance. He altered his course to investigate, circling twice. At 9:10 a.m., Admiral Byrd reported instrument malfunctions as he neared the North Pole. The magnetic and gyroscopic compasses began to spin and oscillating erratically. He also reported the controls were slow to respond and sluggish, though there was no evidence of icing. A seasoned pilot, Admiral Byrd continued to navigate and maintain his direction by using the position of the sun. At 9:10 a.m., 3 hours into his flight, his radio communications began to break up.
At 9:15 a.m., base lost contact with Admiral Byrd, yet he continued to document his flight, continuing to try the radio. Admiral Byrd noted in the distance what appeared to be mountains. 29 minutes from the first sighting of the mountains, at 9:49 a.m., Admiral Byrd confirmed it was no illusion. He had found a small mountain range that had never been seen. At 9:55 a.m., Admiral Byrd once again encountered turbulence and climbed higher to 2,950 feet. At 10 a.m., Admiral Byrd crossed the small mountain range, still proceeding northward, navigating by the sun. Below, Byrd noticed what appeared to be a valley with a small river or stream running through it, a green valley. They were in the middle of the Antarctic. As he continued his flight, on the port side of the plane, he observed great forests growing on the mountain slopes. At 10:05 a.m., Admiral Byrd lowered his aircraft to 1,400 feet and made a sharp left turn to get a closer look at the valley below. He reported nicked grass or moss. The light changed somehow, and he could no longer see the sun. Banking left again, he spots a large animal below, initially calling it an elephant, changing the statement to a mammoth. Admiral Byrd is astonished by the incredible sight. He adjusts his altitude once again to 1,000 feet and with binoculars gets a better view of the animal. He confirms it is indeed mammoth-like. Admiral Byrd radios all of his information to base camp.
At 10:30, still flying over rolling green hills, Admiral Byrd notes the external temperature to be 74 degrees. His navigation instruments appear to be working again, and he attempts to contact base camp, realizing that his radio is no longer functioning. An hour later, at 11:30 a.m., Admiral Byrd spots what appears to be a city. His aircraft controls refuse to respond. Feeling light and oddly buoyant off the port and starboard wings, strange aircraft close rapidly alongside the Douglas RD-4, dish-shaped and glowing. Byrd notes a swastika-type marking on them. Tugging at his controls, he realizes he is caught in some invisible force. At 11:35, Byrd realizes the plane's engines have shut off. All controls are useless. A radio message comes across. "Welcome, Admiral. We shall land you in 7 minutes. You are in good hands." The plane shudders slightly and begins a descent toward a large, shimmering city, pulsating with rainbow hues of color.
Welcome, everybody, to the first road snack of 2026. A new year brings new road snacks, and today we're talking about one of America's most decorated naval officers, Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Today's road snack is a tasty one for sure. And Mary, you said the last episode, this road snack would be chilling. So I kind of envisioned something a little more terrifying coming from you. But I do love this story. Is one of the cornerstone for conspiracies surrounding Antarctica, which is our episode next week. So if you haven't, click that subscribe button now, and let's get into it.
Let's start with who Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd was. Obviously, he was a Rear Admiral for the United States Navy, but he was more than that. So let's take it back. He was born in 1888, and gosh, that seems so long ago, right?
So long ago.
But Richard Byrd was an explorer, graduating from the Naval Academy in 1912, so he was 24 years old. He served on different battleships and was injured in March of 1916 and was retired. But 2 months later, the Navy reactivated him, and he became a naval instructor. So World War I was raging at about this time, and right before we entered the war, in 1916, Byrd completed his training at the Naval Aeronautics Station at Pensacola and was designated an aviator, so he became a pilot. And while he didn't see any combat in World War I, he was strategic in aviation development, pioneering of navigational techniques, and intricately involved in training pilots. He became a key figure in naval aviation expansion after the war.
Not only that, but Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd received numerous prestigious awards, including the Medal of Honor, Navy Cross, 2 Navy Distinguished Service Medals, 2 Legions of Merit, and the Distinguished Flying Cross, making him one of the most decorated U.S. naval officers, alongside other honors like the Congressional Gold Medal for his groundbreaking Antarctic explorations and aviation feats, along with a Hubbard Medal from the National Geographic Society for his Antarctic expeditions. The Smithsonian Institution's Langley Gold Medal, that was for his scientific contributions, and the Medal of Freedom for his leadership in Operation High Jump.
He was also the youngest person in naval history to reach the rank of Rear Admiral at just 41 years old in 1929. He is one of only 3 people to become a Rear Admiral without first holding the rank of captain. He just booped right over that one. So Admiral Byrd was the Navy's golden child, if I can say that. He's not prone to whimsy or craziness. He was very methodical, careful, smart, honorable, just a man that the people trusted, and he was respected by this nation in scientific communities, and the U.S. Navy highly valued him.
I think America loved him. He is the only person we could find that has had not 1, but 3 parades held in their honor in New York City. I mean, the president, that is President Franklin D. Roosevelt, or FDR, made a stamp honoring Admiral Richard E. Byrd's Antarctic expedition, and FDR personally helping design the 1933 3-cent Byrd Antarctic Expedition 2 stamp, which featured Byrd's flight pass and was issued to help finance the expedition.
Yeah, I mean, that's just neat. I don't know what other word to use, but neat. If you don't follow us on social media, if you look us up on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook, that is at Rebel Road Podcast, you will see images of the stamp and Admiral Byrd. We'll put them up there so that you can see them. And he really was larger than life. And my most favorite thing about him was that he is an avid dog lover and actually just really an animal lover. His little dog Igloo is just precious.
I just have to say, I love the fact that his dog's name was Igloo. But yes, he was just an accomplished, pilot. He led 5 Antarctic expeditions. The first one he is credited with is the first flight ever over the South Pole. And the second one, he spent the entire expedition alone, which I think would be terrifying. Admiral Byrd wrote a book about that, and we highly recommend it. And it is called Alone. It details his struggles and just shows what an incredibly determined and strong person he was.
5 months alone in the snow and ice in the Antarctic. You know, I love winter. I love snow and I love ice, but all alone, I'm not sure I could do that. And what we're trying to say here, going through and it was just a brief synopsis of his naval career and all the medals that he's won and all of these prestigious awards that he's gotten, is that Rear Admiral Byrd was not a man prone to fancy or saying or doing things that were not rational. This is a staunchly regarded and respected man in America, the world, and by the United States Navy and President.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it was his third expedition, Operation High Jump, where our opening story found him. And Operation High Jump is interesting. And we will jump, no pun intended. We will jump into this operation next week. But our story today is focused on the flight and that encounter that was mentioned in the opening story. So we stopped the story with Admiral Byrd's aircraft being surrounded by what we would call today 2 flying saucers, right? And caught in a tractor beam being pulled to land in what he described as a shimmering city pulsating with rainbow colors. So, Mary, should we finish the story?
At 11:45 a.m., Admiral Byrd makes a hasty entry into his flight log. Several men are approaching on foot toward the aircraft, tall, with blonde hair. Admiral Byrd and his radio man are escorted in a kind manner from their aircraft and boarded onto a small platform which moved without wheels towards the glowing city with great swiftness. Upon approach of the city, it appeared to be made of a crystal-like material. They arrived at a building which he was unable to describe correctly, something of a Buck Rogers film, he said, and are given a warm beverage unlike anything they had ever had, but was delicious.
The 2 hosts then escort Admiral Byrd alone to meet with someone called the Master. In this room, it is exquisite and delicate, filled with light and beauty. As he is taking in the wonder of this room, a voice welcomes the Admiral. A man with delicate features and the etching of years upon his face is seated at a long table and invites Byrd to join him. The Master tells the Admiral he was allowed to enter the city because of his noble character and renown on the surface world.
On the surface world, Byrd reels from that statement. The Master continued, "You are in the inner world of the earth. We won't delay your mission, and you will be escorted safely back to the surface. I want to send a message with you." The Master proceeds to tell Admiral Byrd about their worry over the atomic bombs humans were using, how they don't like to intervene, but fear they must begin to because of the barbarity and wars between our race. Having tried to deliver messages to other leaders of the human world in 1945, but they were met with hostility. Byrd was chosen to bear witness that the inner world does exist and that humans should not tamper with certain powers, mostly atomic energy. The Master spoke, "Your race has reached the point of no return, for there are those among you who would destroy your very world rather than relinquish their power as they know it."
After meeting with the Master, Admiral Byrd was reunited with his radio man. Once again escorted back to their aircraft, they boarded with the engines idling. Once the cargo bay doors closed, their aircraft immediately lifted by an unseen force to 2,700 feet, with 2 of the unusual aircraft guiding them on their return. The UFOs radioed once again to Byrd, and with their departure, a sudden downdraft caught their plane. Byrd, at 2:20 p.m., was once again over vast areas of ice and snow, only 27 minutes from base camp. Radioing to base camp, all conditions normal, relief was felt at the reestablishment of contact. At 3 p.m., Admiral Byrd lands smoothly at Little America 4. On March 11, 1947, Admiral Byrd has a meeting with the Pentagon and the President. He was detained for 6 hours and 39 minutes by the Pentagon, questioned by top security forces, and examined by a medical team. Admiral Byrd was then placed under strict control and ordered to remain silent on all he had discovered and witnessed. He obeyed until his death, when his diary detailing these events were released.
This is a fantastical story, and most of our story today comes from those missing diary pages, and some of the information was cross-checked with the official flight log from that day. You see, on the date, February 19th, 1947, Admiral Byrd did leave on a reconnaissance flight from Little America with his radio man, and everything matched up until base camp lost radio contact with Admiral Byrd. How long they were without contact is in dispute. The origin of these missing diary pages are in dispute, but Admiral Byrd did later make fantastical statements and said some unusual things after this point in his career, all sparking the conspiracy of the hollow earth as well as alien activity in the Antarctic.
If you want to learn more about the conspiracies circling our southern pole, be sure to join us next week for our full-length episode on Antarctica.
From aliens, advanced technology, lost civilizations, and government secrets, Antarctica has it all. You don't want to miss it, and as always, be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and thanks for listening. We're going to end this episode with Admiral Byrd's own words.
Keep it weird and pull it back to Jesus, friends.
Bye.
Bye.
Our guest tonight found out whether there was any land north of the North American continent. He made that first discovery flight, and I must say that Admiral Byrd, our guest tonight, is not only our greatest living explorer, but he's been an inspiration to countless Americans. Admiral Byrd, you've been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. Is there any unexplored land left on this earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. And not up around the North Pole, because it's getting crowded up there now, because they find out it's really usable, not only to live in, but militarily. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole, on the other side of the South Pole, from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
That's a tremendous...
So there's a lot of adventure left down at the bottom of the world.
Admiral, do you hope to see that?
I do.